Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Bullony Basketball. This is actually the start of season 3, episode number 1. So I believe it's also our 75th episode in all of Bullony Basketball. Now, I'm sure you guys are wondering right now, like, where is Gianni? And that's actually the first thing I'm going to get into before we start talking about, what's going to happen in this episode. So, as for Gianni, he is not going to be a regular host this season. I talked to him about it, and obviously, he has other commitments, and I completely respect that. And we're still cool. I don't want like anyone to think that we're not cool. Like we still talk. We're still probably going to be talking throughout the season, especially with how the Bulls are this year. And I mean, we still follow each other on Twitter, so like we're still cool. But I just wanted to kind of address that in the beginning. As for what's to come with the show, I'm thinking, since this is the first episode, kind of wanted to get that out there. This is just going to be like me giving like my takes on, grading every off season for every team and my predictions for next year, the award predictions, whatever. But in the future, I might try and have a new guest every single week. And I don't know if it's going to be on a weekly basis either. So I just thought I'd get that out of the way and let you guys know. You could, I guess, talk to Johnny if you want. I'll probably have his Twitter in the description so you can, like, say whatever you want. Like, you could, like, wish him good luck or whatever. But he also told me, too, that he might be a guest in the future on a show. So we're definitely going to try and see if we can get that to happen because I'm sure you guys want to hear from him as well because he's played a big part. I mean, 2 seasons, it's about 74 episodes. So I'm sure you guys want to hear from him more as well. But let's get into the big topic for today, and that is season 3 of Bullony Basketball, which is grading every team's offseason, is what we're going to start with. I figured the best way to do this is just starting in alphabetical order. I have like the list right here with the main additions, subtractions, re-signed players, and extensions. So we're just going to hop right into it. Let's start off with the Atlanta Hawks. I gave them personally a B on their offseason. I feel like in terms of their additions, they did well in the draft. I think with Jalen Johnson and Sharif Cooper, that's going to help them a lot. I don't know how much it'll help them this season though. It might be like a long term process for them. DeLon Wright, Gorgie Jang, it's kind of like whatever. They lost a few decent pieces, Tony Snell, Bruno Fernando, and then, bringing back John Collins, Lou Williams, and then also Solomon Hill. That's, I think I feel like though none of those guys would have been huge losses except for John Collins. Lou Williams had his moments, but he also had his bad moments. And then obviously extending Trae Young is a big W. But let's move on to the Boston Celtics. And I gave them a C. I'm kind of leaning towards C minus, but I'm going to give them a C. Adding Schroeder, Al Horford, Josh Richardson, Enes Kanter, Chris Dunn, Bruno Fernando. None of those guys really do much, in my opinion, to like move the needle for Boston. Losing Kemba and Evan Fournier. I mean, people said Kemba losing him might be a blessing in disguise. I kind of disagree. I just feel like he got a raw deal on the way out. Um, in terms of who they re-signed, they didn't really re-sign anyone notable and that I have on here. And then also they extended Marcus Smart and Robert Williams, so that's also pretty good. But it was kind of just like average. Like I don't know, I'm not moved by Boston personally. In terms of the Brooklyn Nets, I gave them a B plus. Now we still need to see everything that's going to happen, like with Kyrie Irving. But in terms of like what they did, bringing in Patty Mills, Paul Millsap, bringing back LaMarcus Aldridge, I think that's pretty much a dub. Extending Kevin Durant, of course, they didn't extend James Harden, which might be a little bit of a concern. But the guys that they lost, I feel like didn't really make a difference. Spencer Dinwiddie, it seemed inevitable that he was going to leave. Landry Shamet is kind of like whatever. I feel like honestly getting back Javon Carter is kind of like a stalemate type of trade. And then also Jeff Green, that might be the one that hurt the most because he was so big in the playoffs for them. But I mean, it is what it is. Let's move on to the Charlotte Hornets, and I gave them a C minus. I think adding Kelly Oubre is a little bit underrated. Um, Also, Mason Plumlee, Ish Smith. The draft, I mean, getting James Bouknight and Kai Jones is pretty solid. In terms of their losses, though, Devontae Graham, Malik Monk, and Cody Zeller, which doesn't seem like a lot, but all of them had pretty pivotal roles for them last season. And then they also extended Terry Rozier, so I felt like a C minus is right. Now we get into the fun part, which is the Chicago Bulls. And if you notice, got that guy right there. I'm thinking about doing every episode, I'm going to put someone in the back there, maybe like a main topic on the episode, or I might just put like a Chicago Bull. I don't know. Sorry, like the light too is kind of like in the way. But anyways, Chicago Bulls, and I gave them an A. I think that adding DeMar DeRozan, adding Lonzo Ball, adding Alex Caruso, I mean, it's huge, and they've looked really good in preseason so far as well. Derek Jones Jr., Tony Bradley, I think those guys can also have pretty solid roles off the bench. Losing Markkanen, it seemed inevitable. Even though I've always been high on Markkanen, it seemed like it was just going to happen. Uh, in terms of all the other losses, though, I don't think any of them were really that substantial, except maybe Thaddeus Young. But I mean, that's the price you got to pay when you got to get a guy like DeMar DeRozan. So ultimately, it's not a big deal. But yeah, and then obviously still got guys like Javonte Green and Devin Dotson. So that should be exciting going forward. Moving on to the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm sorry, Cavs fans. I'm going to give you an F. Um, Bringing in Ricky Rubio, Lauri Markkanen is like okay. I like Lowry too, and I just said this, but the thing is, I don't know how it's going to work now that they drafted Evan Mobley. They still got Jared Allen, and they still got Kevin Love. I don't know what that's going to do. They lost Larry Nance in the Markkanen trade, which I thought was kind of not the right move. Losing Torian Prince isn't that great either. But I guess they did re-sign Jared Allen, so that's pretty solid. But I'm still going to give them an F. Sorry. The Dallas Mavericks, C plus. They didn't really do much. I mean, they made a head coaching change, losing Rick Carlisle and adding Jason Kidd. They lost Josh Richardson. Extending Luka, re-signing Tim Hardaway, bringing in guys like Reggie Bullock and Moses Brown. So it was kind of like an okay offseason, I guess. Nothing crazy though. Denver Nuggets, I gave them a B plus. I think adding Jeff Green and Bones Highland in the draft is going to be pretty solid for them. It's going to be an interesting year too for Michael Porter Jr. I think we might get into that a little bit later though. Losing JaVale McGee and Paul Millsap is a tough blow, at least for Paul Millsap because he was there for so long. And then, re-signing Will Barton and JaMychal Green and Austin Rivers. All those guys were pretty solid for them last year, so I think that that's a good move. The Detroit Pistons, I gave them a B. Drafting Cade Cunningham obviously helps a lot of that. They also got guys like Olynyk and Trey Lyles. Losing Plumlee and Wayne Ellington were kind of some of their more essential players, but in the end, like they're kind of rebuilding, so it really doesn't matter too much. But yeah, we can move on to the Golden State Warriors. And this is an interesting one. I have it listed as a C, but I think I'm going to change it to a C plus. Listen, they got Otto Porter, and I've seen enough of Otto Porter to know how inconsistent this guy is. Bringing back Andre Iguodala, but of course, realize it's not going to be 2015 Finals MVP Andre Iguodala on the squad. Bielitsa, I mean, that's okay, I guess. Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody, they're not bad either. I feel like Kuminga is getting a lot of hype, maybe more than he should right now. I'm not trying to say anything bad about him because I think he will be good, but maybe the hype is too high. Losing Eric Paschall is tough. It seemed like they just kind of gave him away. But yeah, and yet they might have some other additions, like obviously Klay Thompson is going to come back eventually. Looks like Jordan Poole's been playing great in preseason, so that's not something that they did in the offseason, that they like added to their squad. So I'm not going to give them anything higher than I think I said C plus because I had it as a C down here. I'm gonna give them a C plus. And actually, let me change that on here right now. And then okay, so the Houston Rockets also a C plus. Drafting Jalen Green, Daniel Tice, not bad. They got a lot of rookies, and I also like when they drafted Alperen Sengun. I think he's going to be really good. Um, Losing Kelly Olynyk and Sterling Brown, it's kind of whatever. I mean, Olynyk was really good though for them last year, so that's why maybe it kind of brings a lot of this down. Um, but the Indiana Pacers, B plus, new head coach Rick Carlisle for Nate Bjorken is a huge upgrade. They did lose Doug McDermott and Aaron Holiday, but I think adding Torrey Craig, Brad Wanamaker, Chris Duarte in the draft, I think that those are substantial additions, and also they're re-signing T.J. McConnell, so that's pretty good. The Los Angeles Clippers, B plus, and honestly, it could be higher because I think a lot of people thought last year like, oh, Kawhi is gone, and like they're not going to bring back Reggie Jackson, but they brought back both those guys and Nick Batum, and they did lose Patrick Beverley and Rondo. Rondo wasn't doing much for them though. Patrick Beverley maybe hurts a little bit more because he was kind of a big part in the team's like identity, but ultimately, like you still got Justice Winslow, you got Keon Johnson in the draft. That's not bad. And then also Eric Bledsoe, who might not do much in the playoffs, but I think by then he should be a backup to Reggie Jackson, anyways. But in the regular season, he could keep him afloat until like Kawhi Leonard comes back. Um, Los Angeles Lakers, I'm gonna give them a B. I mean, they went for the big splash with Russell Westbrook, but there still is a lot of questions that remain to be answered with that big three. Kendrick Nunn, Melo, Wayne Ellington, Malik Monk, Dwight Howard, Trevor Ariza. I don't know how I really like most of their additions, though. I think adding Malik Monk might be nice, but I feel like they lost a lot defensively. I mean, Trevor Ariza, who's already one of their additions, is going to miss some time. So is Taylor Horton Tucker, who they just re signed. And then also, DeAndre Jordan is already getting slandered by Laker Twitter. So I don't know how that's going to work. I mean, yeah, the losses didn't really do much for them. I think Kuzma is going to be good, but it's not like he was contributing much in LA at this point. Dennis Schroeder, again, I think that it was fine letting him go. The one thing I will say though is that them losing Caruso and Davius Caldwell Pope, that might be like two of the biggest losses for them. Moving on to Memphis, I'm gonna give them a D plus. Personally, Jarrett Culver and Steven Adams, those additions, I don't really get. Losing Valanciunas, who was so good for them last year, also Grayson Allen and Justice Winslow, who were key parts Grayson Allen was a key part in them getting to the playoffs. But I think Justice Winslow like still has that kind of potential. So I don't know. I mean, that one didn't really do much for me. The Miami Heat, though, I got an A for them. I think Kyle Lowry was one of. I feel like people aren't talking enough about the Heat, and I'm even saying this as a Bulls fan. A lot of people are talking about us, but not enough people are talking about the Heat. Because adding Kyle Lowry is huge. Adding PJ Tucker is also huge. They did lose Dragic and Iguodala. A lot of the guys that they lost, like they weren't doing much for them. Of course, Dragic was, but that's the price you got to pay when you get a guy like Kyle Lowry. Kendrick Nunn, he hadn't shown up in the playoffs really the last few years. And then Iguodala, like I said, it's not 2015 Iguodala. It's not 2012 All-Star Iguodala in Philly. So, I mean, that's fine. Bringing back Duncan Robinson, that contract is a bit much, I'd say. You bring back a leader in Udonis Haslem. I mean, he's not going to be playing much. And then also bringing back Victor Oladipo when I think everyone thought, he was done. Like everyone thought like he was maybe even not even going to get a contract, but I think it's pretty good that they actually got him back. And if he's playing like he was, a few years ago, then this team is scary. Um, the Milwaukee Bucks, I gave them a B plus. They didn't really make a big move, but of course you didn't really have to when you're the reigning NBA champions. But bringing back Bobby Portis for a cheap deal, George Hill coming back. I mean, he left and now he's coming back. Getting Rodney Hood is also a pretty good move, I'd say. They did lose PJ Tucker, however, which is kind of like good, kind of bad. He wasn't really contributing much on the offensive end in the playoffs. So in a way, it's okay, but his defense was much needed. The Minnesota Timberwolves, I got a B minus. Adding Beverly, he's already talking about they're going to make the playoffs because like he's never missed it or something. Um, But yeah, so adding Patrick Beverly should be interesting. A lot of their losses, I don't think were much of a loss. Maybe the biggest one was Rubio, I guess, but it is what it is. The Pelicans, I gave them a C minus because I think Valanciunas and Devontae Graham are good additions in normal situations. I just don't think it'll fit that well in New Orleans. Thomas Satoransky is not much of an addition. I'm telling you this as a Bulls fan. Um, and then Garrett Temple is, I think he's a good addition though, and that should be good for them. But again, they lost Lonzo, they lost Eric Bledsoe. They're making another coaching change, which yeah, I know people hated Stan Van Gundy, but they've made so many coaching changes in the last several years. So I mean, that's just something that you got to take into consideration. The New York Knicks, I gave them an A minus. I think adding Kemba, adding Evan Fournier, Quentin Grimes in the draft, I think is going to be really underrated this year. And the guys they lost weren't doing much for them. Like they lost Elfrid Payton, who was getting slandered by Knicks fans all across the globe, and then they lost Reggie Bullock, who was not bad in the season, but of course then he started running his mouth, and then Trae Young kind of got the last laugh against him, um, based on Twitter, and he didn't really show up in the playoffs. And then you bring back Derrick Rose, you bring back Taj Gibson, Alec Burks, and Nerlens Noel. I thought multiple of those dudes were going to leave, and then you extend Julius Randle, so it was a pretty good offseason for them. Oklahoma City Thunder, I'm gonna give him a C minus. I'm gonna keep it real. Guys like Josh Giddey and Trey Mann, not too high on them from the draft. I see a lot of people giving a lot of hype to Josh Giddey, especially. But I mean, we'll just have to see. Losing Al Horford, I think is tough. I think he was actually a pretty pivotal part in helping this team like develop. So I mean, there's that. They did extend Shea though, which is pretty good. But yeah, Orlando Magic. I'm gonna give him a B minus. Drafting Jalen Suggs, I think that a lot of people were ecstatic when they got him because they thought Toronto made the wrong move in getting Scotty Barnes, which I think we'll get to Toronto here in a bit. Getting Franz Wagner as well is also pretty solid. A new head coach, Jamal Mosley, he's gotten like a lot of praise from other head coaches in the league, so we should see that. Losing Otto Porter isn't really much of a big deal. Um, but yeah, and also adding Robin Lopez. The 76ers, I'm giving them an F or an incomplete with the whole Ben Simmons thing. And also adding Drummond and losing guys like George Hill. I don't know how I really feel about them right now. Phoenix Suns, I'm gonna give them a B minus. Landry Shamet is a decent addition. Again, I don't know if it's much of a W or an L as opposed to having Javon Carter. So um, there's that. They did get their backup center though in JaVale McGee, which is something that they kind of desperately needed last year. Elfrid Payton probably won't play nearly as much there as he did in New York, so that's kind of just like a whatever. They did lose Torrey Craig, however, and they did lose Javon Carter, like we said. But I think extending Chris Paul, yeah, was quite a bit of money, but still getting him locked up. Cameron Payne as well, and then also Frank Kaminsky. I think that it was pretty important to bring all those guys back. The Portland Trailblazers, give me a B, and I was going to give them a lower rating, but I think the Larry Nance move kind of saved them. A new head coach in Chauncey Billups should be an improvement over Terry Stotts because Terry Stotts was one of the worst coaches in the league the past few years. Adding guys like Tony Snell, Ben McLemore should be interesting to see what Dennis Smith Jr. is doing. Um, and the guys they lost, like none of them were really contributing defensively except for Derrick Jones Jr., who by the end of the year wasn't even getting much playing time, anyways. And then they did bring back Norman Powell, which I mean he played pretty well in the regular season last year. So I mean hopefully for them, he continues that next year in the regular season and the playoffs. The Sacramento Kings, give me a B minus. Tristan Thompson, Alex Len. I mean, these guys are decent additions. I guess they're improvements off Hassan Whiteside at this point, based on their role. They did bring back Rishwan Holmes and Terrence Davis and Mo Harkless, so there's that. And then drafting Davion Mitchell, I think that was a pretty big steal in the draft. Um, the San Antonio Spurs, give me a D. They're just kind of like starting over, I guess, but just a big misfit of players like Doug McDermott and Thaddeus Young. They got Al-Farouq Aminu as well in the DeRozan trade. Zach Collins, Bryn Forbes is back in San Antonio. So I don't know really how to feel about that. And they did lose DeRozan, but they also lost Patty Mills and Rudy Gay. So, I mean, yeah, I'm going to give them a D. The Toronto Raptors, I'm gonna give them a B minus. Because I think Dragic will do pretty well there. They added Precious, adding guys like Sam Decker and Steve Mikhailuk might help with the 3-point shooting, and then also drafting Scotty Barnes. Now losing Kyle Lowry is tough. They lost Rodney Hood and Aaron Baines as well, but losing Aaron Baines was almost like a plus because of the way he played there. And then, you know, bringing back Gary Trent Jr. was also a W. So I'm gonna give him a B plus or a B minus, and I think that's what they deserve. Utah Jazz, though, they get a B plus. Adding Rudy Gay, adding Eric Pascal, and then Whiteside, he might be able to do a lot of the similar things to Rudy Gobert to a lesser extent. So there's that. I think that that's a decent addition. They lost Jorgus Yang, never really been high on him, and Derek Favors, which is a tough blow, but I think that they got enough back in return to keep them at a B plus, and then also re-signing Mike Conley. And then the Washington Wizards, I got them at a C. Um, just a big misfit of players. It seems like they're doing the same thing they did 2 years ago, where it's just Bradley Beal out there. They got rid of Westbrook. I think Kuzma is going to have a solid year this year. KCP should have a solid season. Spencer Dinwiddie will just be kind of like on his own team. He should be the starting point guard. Uh, I wasn't fond of what they did in the draft, and their head coaching change maybe is a bit questionable. I know Scott Brooks wasn't really great there either, but Wes Unseld Jr., I don't know if that's the best fit yet. I'm going to have to see. Um, but yeah, I think that's. Oh, and they also re signed Raul Neto. But yeah, I think that's going to cover the ranking every team's like off season and whatever. But now we can get into the standing predictions. Let's start in the Eastern Conference. My first seed, I have the Brooklyn Nets. Now, there's still a bit of a question mark as to the awards later on. So, but I do have them at the first seed in the East, 61 and 21. My second seed, I got the Milwaukee Bucks, 57 and 25. Third, I got Miami at 54 and 28. And then fourth, my other home court advantage team, Philadelphia 76ers. They're going to be 50 and 32. I don't know why I put like 50 and 24 on there. So that's my top four. I feel like people might be sleeping a little bit too much on Philly because of the whole Ben Simmons situation, but they'll still be solid. They'll still for sure be one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference. Now, the fifth seed, I got the Chicago Bulls at 47 and 35. I think that we're going to be pretty solid next year. But also at 47 and 35 in the sixth seed, New York Knicks. Seventh, the Atlanta Hawks at 46 and 36. And this might surprise you, but my eighth seed at 44 and 38 is the Indiana Pacers. Because I really think that if they're healthy, and again, before the season, we have to expect that they're going to be healthy, like everyone that actually is. Now, like Kawhi Leonard, for instance, yeah, like we're going to expect him to miss maybe almost all of the NBA season. But these guys for the Pacers are likely going to be back in time. So, with that being the case, I just think that they got a better starting lineup than my 9 seed Boston Celtics, who I think is just 43 and 39. Um, my 10 seed Detroit Pistons, 35 and 47. My 11 seed Charlotte is going to be 34 and 48. My what else? My 12 seed Orlando Magic, 32 and 50. My 13 seed the Toronto Raptors will be 31 and 51. The 14 seed, in my opinion, will be the Washington Wizards, 25 and 57. And then last, I got the Cleveland Cavaliers at 20 and 62. But yeah, let's transition over here to the Western Conference and my standing. The first seed I thought about this for a while with like maybe 4 or 5 different teams, but I've come to the conclusion that the first seed will be the Phoenix Suns. I think that they're still going to be really good next year. I mean, they made kind of the addition that they needed to with getting a backup center too. So, but I think they still have that chemistry flowing. I mean, they're coming straight off an NBA Finals appearance, so they're going to be motivated to come out next year. And I got them at 59 and 23. The second seed, I got the Utah Jazz, 58 and 24. The third seed, now this is going to surprise people. Third seed, I got the Portland Trailblazers, and they're going to be 56 and 26. I think people sleep too much on teams that don't make big moves in the offseason. And if you look at teams like Portland or, Dallas or whoever, like people aren't talking as much about them because they didn't make a big move. But I think that's kind of dumb because you could say last year the Utah Jazz didn't make a big move, but then they ended up with the best record in the NBA. So I don't know. I think that it's just going to come together, and Portland's going to get a 3 seed, which they have before, with probably less talented casts against teams like the Kevin Durant-led Warriors. So I think that they could get the 3 seed for sure, 56 and 26. My 4 seed, I had the Los Angeles Lakers. They'll be 52 and 30. I don't know how easily they're going to transition in the beginning of the regular season. Now, as time goes on, they'll probably, get in more of a groove, but I think early on they'll probably have a little struggles, and then, they'll kind of be fine after that. The 5th seed, I got the Golden State Warriors at 50 and 32. The 6th seed, I got the Denver Nuggets, 49 and 33. My 7th seed, I got the Los Angeles Clippers, even though Kawhi might not be there, but I think Paul George is going to have a really good year. 48 and 34 for them. And then my 8th seed, I got the Dallas Mavericks at 47 and 35. Moving on to 9 and 10, Memphis Grizzlies at 44 and 38. And my 10th seed, I actually got the Minnesota Timberwolves at 37 and 45. I think that, assuming they're healthy too, they very well could be competing for the playoffs. You got Karl Anthony Towns and D'Lo, who have both been proven all-stars. Anthony Edwards is looking like a star. Malik Beasley is good for 20 a game for the past several seasons now. So I think people are kind of sleeping on them. The 11th seed, New Orleans Pelicans, 35 and 47. We don't really know what's going to happen so far with Zion because he kind of has an injury, so we don't know when he's going to be back. They said maybe about 2-3 weeks, so we'll have to see that. That could also make him start off slow. 12 seed Sacramento Kings, 33 and 49. 13 seed, I got the Houston Rockets at 23 and 59. 14th, I got the Oklahoma City Thunder at 20 and 62. And 15th seed, and the worst record in the NBA, I think it'll be the San Antonio Spurs at 15 and 67. Now, for my awards, let's start from the bottom here. Actually, no, let's just start from the beginning. My MVP pick for this season, I think it will be Damian Lillard. And I think you could have probably expected that with me having Portland higher than where most people do. But I just think he's going to have an MVP season. I think he's going to elevate his game. And I think having guys like Larry Nance there, also Tony Snell, I think it's going to help space the floor out for them more. And I think they're going to be extremely motivated. So give me Damian Lillard for MVP. My defensive player of the year, I got Bam Adebayo. And this is a tough one. I could go to like 3 or 4 different people, but I just think Bam will get it. The sixth man of the year, I mean, I might be biased. But I think it's going to be Derrick Rose with the New York Knicks. It very well could be Jordan Clarkson again. It very well could be Joe Ingles again. Just like looking at some of these guys, depending on like who the Nets have off the bench, maybe it could be like Patty Mills or something. Maybe Bobby Portis if he's coming off the bench for the Bucks. But I don't know. I just think that D Rose is going to get it. Moving on to most improved player, and this is an interesting one because, there's guys like Anthony Simons in Portland that would probably be a good candidate. You also got, like, in Denver, Michael Porter Jr. Of course, he was kind of in the running the last year, so I don't know how much he's going to be in it this year. And usually it goes to, like, a guy that's been in the league for 3 or more years. That's why a lot of people are saying OG Anunoby. But I just feel like this year it's not going to because I think this person's going to have a pretty big transition. And I'm picking for the Philadelphia 76ers, I think it'll be Tyrese Maxey. I think that he could average like maybe 17 or 18 a game. So I think that he's going to be the most improved player, regardless of being like a second-year player. Rookie of the year, I got Cade Cunningham. I think he's the best rookie in the draft class. So there's that. And then my coach of the year, it's going to be Chauncey Billups for Portland if this is what happens. Now, not saying that he's necessarily the best coach in the league because, I mean, guys like Monty Williams or, you know, even like Steve Nash, if he's dealing with all this like Kyrie stuff and then he gets the best record in the league, in this situation, probably would do more, you could argue. But I just think that Portland being that high might be a little bit more surprising. And I think that's a big reason why Tom Thibodeau got it last year, even though a lot of people thought maybe Monty Williams would get it or Quinn Snyder would get it. But I think nobody in their minds thought that the Knicks could have been the 4th seed in the East. So that's my awards pick. But now let's go into the playoffs, starting with the play-in. Let's go with the Eastern Conference. The 7-8 game, I got the Atlanta Hawks beating the Indiana Pacers, and in the 9-10, I got Boston probably destroying the Detroit Pistons in the 9-10. And in the decider game between the 8 seed Pacers and 9 seed Celtics, I have the Indiana Pacers. I still think that they're going to win. Um, and they kind of want revenge, I'm sure, too, from last year. Let's move on, though, to the play-in the Western Conference. The 7 and 8 seed Clippers and Mavericks. I feel like the Clippers, this is a perfect instance where they'll come out like slow and sluggish. And knowing Dallas and how motivated they always are against the Clippers, I think that they'll actually win this. And Dallas will then get the 7th seed. And then the 9-10 matchup with Memphis and Minnesota. I actually got Minnesota winning. I think that guys like Karl Anthony Towns are going to be hungry to try and get back into the playoffs. So I think that they'll win. And then in the decider game for the 8 seed, the 7 seed Clippers really, and then the 10 seed Timberwolves, I think the Clippers will win. I just think that they're better. And Kawhi Leonard might even be back by then. So that's something to consider. But now moving on in the playoffs, starting with the Eastern Conference, really. In the first round, the 1-8 matchup between Brooklyn and Indiana. I got the Nets in 5. The Pacers, if they end up playing Brooklyn, they're not going to get swept. But I think that it'll go 5. It shouldn't be that difficult. The 4 and 5 seed between Philadelphia and Chicago. This is also probably going to be a little biased, but give me my Bulls in 7. It's the 10-year anniversary of when Philly beat us, and also because of those injuries that we had that we don't like to talk about here as Bulls fans. But I think that we're going to get revenge. The 2 seed Milwaukee Bucks and 7 seed Hawks. Give me the Bucks in 5. Shouldn't be that difficult. And then the 3 seed Miami and 6 seed Knicks. This is a tough one, and this might be the closest matchup. But give me Miami in 7. I think they'll get it done. In the Western Conference first round, between the 1 seed Suns and the 8 seed Clippers. See, we don't know if Kawhi is coming back, and if Kawhi was back, I'd actually probably lean toward the Clippers. But I'm kind of holding out hope that he might come back, and then also, knowing how well they played without him last year, I think it's going to go 7, but naturally I'm still going to pick the Phoenix Suns to win. I think they'll get it done. The 4 seed Lakers and the 5 seed Warriors. Give me the Lakers in 6, but I very well could see the Warriors winning this series as well, especially the way that they played against them so far in preseason. They just look like a more better continuity and more together as a team than the Lakers do. But I think maybe by playoff time, the Lakers will figure stuff out a little bit more. The 2 seed Utah Jazz and the 7 seed Dallas Mavericks. Give me Utah in 6. They're just a better all-around team. I think that they'll be, again, one of the best three-point shooting teams, as well as one of the better defensive teams in the league. And then 3 seed Portland and 6 seed Denver, kind of the same matchup as last year, but flipping the seeds and also I think flipping the outcome rather than Denver winning in 6. I think Portland will win this one in 6. They're going to want revenge and maybe the ultimate revenge sequence because of they won in 2019 against them. Then Nuggets beat them in 2021, so this would kind of be the best of three in terms of series. In the East second round, the 1 seed Nets and the 5 seed Bulls. I got the Bulls. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not picking the Bulls. Give me the Nets in 6. I think that that would even be kind of generous. It might even go 5, but I don't think that the Bulls will get swept against them. The 2 seed Bucks and the 3 seed Miami Heat. Now, the past few years when they played, the first year the Heat destroyed them, and then last year the Bucks destroyed the Heat. But I think this year it's going to be an actual matchup. It'll go 7 games, but I think the Milwaukee Bucks will still prevail. Um, in the Western Conference semifinals, the 1 seed Phoenix Suns and the 4 seed Lakers. This is going to surprise you, but I think the Phoenix Suns will still win in 6, just like they did last year. I really don't know. I'm not really bought in too much with how the Lakers will fit, and I know that they'll, get better as the season progresses. But I just don't know if they'll fit the way the Phoenix Suns do. I think a lot of people forget too last year that, like, yeah, while Anthony Davis did get hurt, like Chris Paul was playing almost the whole series with like a shoulder injury. So I think he would be even more impactful in this series. So I'm taking the Phoenix Suns in 6. Then the 2-3 seed between Utah and Portland. Um, it'll go 7 games, but give me the Utah Jazz. I think that they're just a better team. Um, they're better on both ends of the court than the Portland Trailblazers are. Portland's going to have that firepower offensively, but again, I think they even lost some of that, like losing Melo and losing like Enes Kanter, who's always been a solid offensive player. So I don't know if they're going to be quite as dominant in that aspect this year, unless Dame has a better like MVP level season than I'm projecting to have. Um, but yeah, give me Utah in 7. In the Eastern Conference Finals between the Brooklyn Nets and the Milwaukee Bucks, I think the Nets want revenge. Give me the Nets in 6. And the Western Conference Finals between the Suns and the Jazz, the 1 and 2 seed, who both were the 1 and 2 seed last year, just flipped. Um, I think Game 1 will go to the Jazz. I think the Suns will win Games 2 and 3. I think Game 4 will go to Utah. Game 5 will go to Phoenix. Game 6 will go to Utah. And then Game 7, I'm picking the Jazz. I think that the Jazz are going to get it done. I think we've seen too many failures from the Utah Jazz, and you can tell like a guy like Donovan Mitchell, he wants to like get over that hump. Like he's one of those type of guys, and I don't think that if he gets to this moment, he's going to try and like seize the moment. So I got the Utah Jazz going to the NBA Finals, and that would make the NBA Finals between the 1 seed in the East, the Brooklyn Nets, and the 2 seed in the West, the Utah Jazz. Um, Now, if Kyrie Irving is like still not playing by this time, then the Jazz have a pretty decent chance here. Um, but naturally, I'm not expecting that, and I'm also like not expecting um, that to be the likeliest outcome either. So I got the Brooklyn Nets beating the Utah Jazz in 6 games, uh, and my Finals MVP will be Kevin Durant. And I think that that's how the season's going to go this year. And I might be totally wrong. I made a video about like my predictions like 2 years ago, and I think it was like one of the most disliked videos on my channel. So there's definitely a chance that I could be completely wrong here. But again, that's what makes it all like a prediction. So again, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. Again, I'm gonna try and figure out what is actually gonna be done with like the Bullony basketball stuff. Um, and if you're interested, maybe in like being a guest on a certain episode or something, like you could also let me know either I guess in the comment section below or on like Instagram or Twitter or something like that. But we're just gonna try and figure it out. I'm not like gonna stress myself into necessarily posting stuff once a week. Now, if I can, then that's great. If I can't, then it's kind of like whatever. But yeah, I just thought I'd let you guys know that as well. And you can also let me know what you think about my predictions in the comment section below. I mean, naturally, I think that I dominated the predictions. But now, like, yeah, you guys can tell me, who do you think is going to win the NBA championship? Who do you think is going to be league MVP? And I guess you could say, who do you think had the best offseason as well? Because that's what we started with. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for me. Thank you guys for watching, and I'm out. Peace.